First of all, can I say that I'm really pleased to be here, and this follows in a recent, very great tradition of the great debates, which I've attended two now, and they are really awe-inspiring in terms of the quality of debate and the talent from everyone who has contributed from the floor. I'm just wanted to first of all say that. I'll actually start by talking about a work I've been doing with Operation Black Vote, which is, we recently brought out a report. I don't know if some of you saw The Guardian about a month or two ago, and there was a big front page splash, which is that black electorate can decide the results of the next general election. And I actually wrote the report for Operation Black Vote. And what it shows is that 168 marginal constituencies have a black or Asian and ethnic minority population larger than the majority of the sitting MP. And those are just the marginal constituencies. There were actually over 200 overall, but we took away some of them because they didn't count as potential swing seats. Now, what we have to remember is that at the last election in 2010, only 100 seats changed hands. And the current government governs with a majority of about 77, I believe. So 77 versus 168. Actually, what it shows, very, very loud and clear, is that we do have collectively the power to decide who enters Parliament, who gets the keys to Downing Street. And with that power actually comes the power to make demands. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I actually think that we don't do, and we have historically not done enough. There's been a long history, certainly from the Windrush generation through to trade union, black activism within trade unions, and within political parties with the black sections. There's been a level of black organisation, but what there hasn't been, and this is the next level I think, is an organisation within communities to say to MPs, we want you to put race back on the agenda. And I think race has been off the agenda, race equality, for quite some time now, and it's just an absolute disgrace, and it's everywhere you look, you find an absence of any policies to tackle race discrimination and race inequality, which is one of the huge scars on our society. Now, the Operation Black Vote report was not necessarily to tell the political parties that the black vote is important, because they already know every political party has their own number crunchers tucked away within their headquarters, and they know, because they have done the numbers, they've done the maths, they know that actually the black vote is extremely powerful, but they won't tell you that. So what the report was doing, and what Operation Black Vote was doing, was actually saying to the electorate, we all know that we've got a certain level of political power and influence if we want to use it, but this is exactly how much at this present time. And that power will only increase as time goes by, as the black population increases, and as we move out of the inner city conurbations, which is what's happening as well, into outside areas, into small towns, into market towns, into the countryside itself. And these are where the marginal seats are. Now, some people, and I as a Liberal Democrat, believe in proportional representation, but we haven't got it. We had a referendum 3 years ago now. It was early in this Parliament, and it was lost, in my view, because we didn't allow enough time to make the case. So I think that's sort of off the agenda. Now, with PR, clearly, we would be able to exercise, or all parts of society would be able to exercise far more political influence, whereas under the first past the post, the election, and indeed the manifestos of all the major political parties, as I see it, are concentrated on the middle ground. But we have this system at the moment, but we can work with the system that we've got, even though I believe, and I'm sure that some of you believe, that the political system is actually unfair. And I think an example of how this country is focused on the so-called centre ground is witnessed by the immigration bill. It just had its second reading last night. And I was outside this house yesterday morning with a coalition, a cross-party coalition and a grassroots coalition of people who are campaigning to say that this bill is completely and utterly unacceptable. But before I just go into the bill, I will talk about the bill in a second, but the point I'm making here is that this is where the centre ground is. For me, it's to the right. You know, it's not the centre ground at all, but that is where the centre happens to be on the issue of asylum, immigration and migrant rights. So, you know, we have to use our influence to pull that back and to actually say to political parties, no, we will not accept that. You know, we want more, you know, we demand more, and, you know, we do not accept that, you know, immigrants should be classed as second-class citizens, that they should have their rights taken away from them, because it doesn't just affect immigrants, it also affects all of us as well. I'll just give you an example. If you look at the landlords part of the bill, what it says is that any landlord who is found to be giving a roof over the head of a quote irregular migrant, whatever that means, will be liable for a £3,000 fine per person. So if there's a family in there, you can just multiply that by however many people that there are. Now, what we have to understand is that the immigration and asylum law is extremely complex. There are many immigration lawyers that don't even understand you know, immigration law that well, which is why so much bad advice is sometimes given. So, you know, when you have landlords that are not understanding the system, they are not going to take a risk with people who look like they are foreign. So when it comes to people being, any of you, if this bill is passed, seek some private rented accommodation. If this bill is passed, the landlord may well actually just look at you and say, I'm not going to take a chance on you because you might turn out to be a regular migrant, particularly if you haven't got a passport. And many people don't have a passport, actually. Many British citizens don't have a passport. And there was a recent study done which actually showed this, and it was mentioned by David Lammy in the House of Commons yesterday. So, you know, this actually affects all of us. This doesn't just affect, immigrants and asylum seekers, refugees. It actually affects all of us because it opens the door to racial profiling, and that is something which is completely unacceptable. I think the other thing it does as well is it erodes the rights of immigrants, and at the same time it actually erodes the very basic underlying principles of universal care when it comes to healthcare in particular, and I think that's very, very worrying as well. Now, some people, and I've heard on the radio and chat show stations, they say, oh well, why can't they point to other countries and they like America, and they say, well, actually, healthcare is not free there. Well, actually, if you look at the other side of the coin, what you find is a huge problems with America's healthcare system, which is why Barack Obama has invested so much time and effort and held on to his reforms in the face of demands by the Tea Party sections of the Republican Party not to give in on healthcare. So we should not be pointing, nobody, political commentators or radio disc jockeys or whatever, should not be pointing to America and say that we actually want to be like them at all. So just to come back to my point, this is where the centre ground is at the moment, but we have the power to move that centre ground to a much more progressive, a much more sympathetic, a much more compassionate point of view, if only we actually do make those demands on our politicians. And I think that those demands are not just about saying to politicians, we want you to put race back on the agenda, or we want you to listen to our concerns, but it's actually about participating far more in the political process. Getting involved in political parties, registering to vote, when you're in political parties, actually organising to get the political representatives that we want. At the moment we have 27 MPs of colour, but how many of them are taking forward the issues that we feel very passionately about? Obviously we feel concerned about many sort of mainstream issues as everyone else, but there are particular issues about race discrimination that most of them aren't actually tackling, with the honourable exception, I have to say, of Diane Abbott, who's just come in. So we can actually get more political representatives that are going to represent us and actually be more accountable to the community if we use the power and the numbers that we actually have, and I believe that we can really do that, and that's one of the underlining messages from the Operation Black Vote report, as I see it. It's about using that power. Now, obviously, as a Liberal Democrat, I couldn't come to an audience of young people like you and actually not address the burning issues that you have in relation to tuition fees and the EMA. Now, I'm actually from the left of the party, so I believe that we shouldn't have tuition fees at all. That's my view, and that we shouldn't have cut EMA. But it's one of the decisions that the government or the leadership of the Liberal Democrats compromised when they formed a coalition with the Conservatives. My issue is that once Nick Clegg had come out and apologised and said effectively we'd made the wrong decision, that there should have been more scope for him to then overturn the decision and lobby very hard in government to bring that back, and not just simply say I'm sorry and then sit down again. He would say, if he was here, well, actually, we entered an agreement, it was sort of signed in blood, and that was a compromise we made, and I'm sorry. But actually, what we've seen in this government is many issues come forward, many bills, many initiatives, which were not in the original coalition agreement. They were not in the half-term review. And the immigration bill is a classic. That was not something that we signed up to. So, if on one hand the Conservatives can bring forward a whole range of reforms, including welfare reform, including the immigration bill, which was not signed up to originally, then as far as I'm concerned, the Liberal Democrats should actually be demanding that the issue of EMA and the issue indeed of the raising of tuition fees should come back on the agenda. But obviously I'm not necessarily I'm holding my breath on that one. I think that this is something which may be not something that we can necessarily bring back here. I'll be very interested to hear what Diane has had to say. I know she's not on the front bench now, but recently was, so I don't know whether she's been partaking in any discussions about what the future policies are for Labour for the forthcoming election.